What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 46 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Wednesday, January 29th, 2024. I'm your host, Zach Malamo. Before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the NBA as the New York Knicks have been on a roll lately as they defeated the Memphis Grizzlies 143-106 on Monday night. And they are on a 4-game win streak right now, completely storming through a couple of teams that they faced from the Western Conference, the Sacramento Kings, who they beat up on Saturday, and then the Grizzlies, who they won against on Monday. So 2 back-to-back performances, the first time that the Knicks have put up 140-plus points since in back-to-back games since 1965. So the offense looking real sharp right now, and 2 teams that they really just destroyed in the end in Sacramento and Memphis. I mean, overall in that game, you're looking at a guy like Mikal Bridges, who's been pretty strong lately, and he gets the 28 points on Monday and 12 of 19 shooting, also had 5 rebounds, 6 assists, really getting involved on the offensive end and doesn't really need those guys beside him. Of course, the help of Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson putting up numbers as always, but I mean, Mikal Bridges leading the way and taking the reins of it and saying, yeah, this is my time. And that's why the Knicks went out and got him. I mean, a elite scorer at some parts of the game, and has been really, really strong, like I said, down this stretch. So the Knicks on a 4-game win streak, and now they bring it into tonight's game, a 7:30 start on ESPN. Knicks get prime time here. The 31-16 New York Knicks, the 28-18 Denver Nuggets come to town, and Denver 4th in the Western Conference right now. Knicks 3rd in the Eastern Conference. What a matchup it is. And the Knicks come in as 2.5-point favorites, total sitting at 242.5. So when you look at this for the Knicks, it's, I mean, business as usual. Got to handle business here, but you're going up against, in my opinion, the top player in the NBA in Nikola Jokic, who's averaging 30 points a game right now, along with 13.1 rebounds and 10.2 assists, averaging that triple-double. What a surprise that really is with one of the best players in the NBA in Nikola Jokic. He's just otherworldly. So the Knicks are going to have a tough test tonight, and they're going to have to really figure it out on their home floor. Positive sign for the Knicks is that, yeah, they completely destroyed Denver earlier in the season in Denver. They really gave the Nuggets fits in that game and ended up putting up the same amount of points as they have in the last couple of games, 140 plus. They put up 145 actually in that one on November 25th against the Denver Nuggets. I mean, just a remarkable performance that was. And OG Anunoby was a story there, but that's the story for the Knicks season. Every guy steps up in a couple of different games here or there. Right now it's been Bridges, Brunson, of course, Towns, of course, Anunoby when he can. Even Josh Hart will step up sometimes and put up numbers for them. So, I mean, it's been a great stretch for the Knicks, and now they have to continue to roll into tonight's game. And I mentioned how tough that schedule is in the last episode, how tough that schedule is right now on this homestand, and they've breezed through the first 2 games, Sacramento and Memphis. Now they have Denver, the Lakers, as well as the Rockets. So 3 really tough opponents that they're really going to have to handle, but they are at home, and like I said, they've been playing very, very well. 4-game win streak, looking to make it 5, 6, and 7 on this 5-game homestand. So we'll see what happens. Tune in later, 7:30 start as the Knicks host Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Tune in. Should be a great one at MSG tonight. Switching things to baseball, a little bit of news out of both New York teams. Let's start off with the Yankees, as Aaron Boone spoke to the media yesterday, spoke on WFAN radio, and said that the Yankees not really too interested in the third base market and what it has to offer right now. Jazz Chisholm looks like he's going to be the everyday second baseman for the Yankees, and that means that DJ LeMahieu, Oswald Peraza, and Oswaldo Cabrera will all compete for reps at third base. And not really a problem in my mind for the Yankees. I really actually like that scenario for them, especially after they really filled up their outfield. Jason Dominguez looks like he's going to be starting in left. Then you got Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger as well. So when you look at that, once they traded for Cody Bellinger, solidifying that outfield, that meant that there was probably going to be one position in the infield that was a bit open, and really you had a bunch of depth guys that you could really go to. And really, this is the scenario. Third base is one of those positions. Yeah, it's going to be important down the stretch, but you can really go with the hot hand and see who's playing well. And I'm expecting a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera to really step up here. Has been a great fielder for the Yankees and has figured things out in the last couple of seasons to try and get on base and just be that strong type of 9 hitter. And I think that's what he's going to end up being for the Yankees. So an interesting choice here for Aaron Boone, who it's going to end up being the everyday third baseman. But it's really going to be, like I said, about the hot hand, who's playing well and who's not really in a slump. LeMahieu's been in a massive slump since coming back from injury and obviously struggled towards the end of last year. Peraza, a little bit less experience in the MLB and maybe needs a little bit more time, but you could really see what he has to offer. But the Yankees obviously going to give him a chance here and really have him compete for third base reps with LeMahieu and Cabrera. So interesting for the Yankees, and I think this is a good move by the Yankees and Aaron Boone, as well as Brian Cashman. If they don't see somebody they really, really like, whether it's in a trade or signing somebody in free agency, then don't do it and save it for next year. Maybe the market gets a bit better at third base in the next offseason, or you just, if it's a real need, then you look at the trade deadline and look to add to it. So that's really the story for the Yankees right now. I really like how they've run their offseason. I think their one need left is in the bullpen and bringing back a couple of guys. I mean, a guy like Tim Hill is still on the free agent market, and somebody that I would specifically want back for the Yankees. Had a great playoffs last year and a great postseason. He was really strong in the regular season as well, but down the stretch into the postseason, very good player. So I'm expecting the Yankees to maybe make a move for him and try and bring him back for this upcoming season. As for the Mets, just a little bit on Steve Cohen's comments. Talked about Pete Alonso's negotiations. Met fans ended up booing him on Amazing Day. They were booing David Stearns as well on Amazing Day at Citi Field. And a lot of Met fans are on either side here. I can see both sides of it. First, David Stearns as well as Steve Cohen have lashed out a ton of money. Steve Cohen specifically has lashed out a ton of money, and he brought in Juan Soto. He brought in the biggest free agent. And of course, Met fans are not satisfied. And then you take the Met fan point of view here, and they know that Pete Alonso and know how important Pete Alonso is to their lineup and how important he's going to be down the stretch when they need him come postseason time or anywhere close to that. He's just a very important player in Met fans' minds and a guy that they really want to bring back. They're also sitting there, Met fans are, they're watching the Dodgers sign everybody. So they know that the competition is going to be very, very high in the National League. And how do they get past the Dodgers? They got to spend money and they got to bring in guys and they got to bring back the guys that they challenged the Dodgers with in this postseason. One of those guys is Pete Alonso. So I can see both sides of it. But on one side, Met fans need to relax just a little bit in terms of booing the owner and booing the president of baseball operations. I mean, they got Juan Soto. They did get Juan Soto. I know that maybe some people think that's not enough, but that's the big free agent, and they went out and got him. They spent the money to bring him to New York and take him away from the Yankees in the end. So, I mean, overall, they got to be pretty happy about that. However, on the other side, the Mets aren't done here, and they cannot be done. David Stearns, Steve Cohen, they got to spend some more money. They got to go out and get some more guys because there's a bunch of holes in that lineup, I would say, and stuff that they really have to figure out, whether it's, younger guys coming in, whether it's Vientos or Beatty or any of those guys coming in, who's going to play first, who's going to play third, and then who's going to end up being second. I mean, there's just a lot of holes to fill, plus the fact that their bullpen still needs a little bit more work, and obviously bringing back a couple guys from last year and maybe bringing some more guys on the free agent market in to be part of that bullpen. So a lot of room for improvement in my mind for the Mets. So rightfully so, some Met fans very angry right now with how this Alonso negotiations has went. But I mean, he said it himself, Steve Cohen. It's been exhausting, and he said Soto was pretty easy. This one's been real difficult between the Mets and Pete Alonso. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, spring training is just under a month away, and the Mets are going to have to make some moves as the pitchers and catchers and everybody's going to be heading down to Florida in the next couple weeks for spring training. So we'll see what happens, but obviously both teams, the Mets and the Yankees, need a little bit more on both sides to complete their roster for the 2025 season. Let's finish things off today with a college basketball update, and we'll start off with a quick recap of last night's games and the big upset in the end. Really not that big, but based on the injuries that Kentucky had coming into this one, number 12 Kentucky goes to Knoxville and knocks off number 8 Tennessee. Tennessee, their fourth loss of the season. Kentucky moves to 15-5, 78-73 was the final score. And Kentucky in this one, without their point guard, Lamont Butler, without one of their bigs in Andrew Carr, not a problem. They go to Knoxville. They put up 48 points in the second half. And that's really unheard of in Knoxville with how well Tennessee usually plays defense. They did not play any defense, it seemed, in this one on their home floor. So Kentucky, props to them. They get the win on the road, a tough win, even with those injuries that I mentioned. I mean, that's a gritty win for Kentucky and maybe a boost to them after a couple of losses. Let's look at some of the rest of the games just quickly. Louisville on a roll right now, an absolute wagon in my mind in the ACC. They're 21st in the nation now, 16-5. They trounced in the first half Wake Forest, 45-21 the score was at halftime. Ended up being a little bit closer. Wake Forest pulling closer towards the end, but a 72-59 win for the Louisville Cardinals, and they are rolling right now, like I mentioned, in the ACC. And St. John's as well, really playing great right now, and it was a weak second half in the end, but the Johnnies, this game was over at halftime. 47-21, they led Georgetown on the road at halftime, and they get a 66-41 comfortable win in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, Kadari Richmond, Zuby Ejiofor, RJ Lewis, they're all stepping up big time right now, and especially here in New York, really exciting time to be a fan of St. John's. 18-3 and 9-1 in the Big East, and one of their best starts in a very long time. Since the 80s, it seems. They've had a really great start to the season and got to keep it rolling. They got some tough games coming up as Marquette, UConn, a bunch of those teams they face off against in the next couple of weeks. Let's switch things to tonight's games and just quickly look at a couple of matchups here. Number 4, Alabama taking on number 14, Mississippi State. This one at 9 o'clock tonight, and Bama is 1.5-point underdogs on the road in Starkville, Mississippi. This one should be a great game as Alabama gets a tough test. They're 17-3 on the year, 6-1 in SEC play. And Mississippi State on the other side, 16-4 and 4-3 in SEC play. Couple of those losses to ranked teams for Mississippi State, and they've been a bit tough for the Bulldogs lately. But I mean, Alabama's going to give them a real strong test here. I'm expecting a ton of points in this one. Bama and Mississippi State, both very high-scoring teams, so we'll see what happens. But Bama on the road, it's going to be a tough test for them, and looking to avoid another loss this season, and really rolling right now as the number 4 team in the country. And like I said, I expect a lot of points here tonight, and that favors most of the time the Crimson Tide in Nate Oates' offense. So we'll see what happens there. The other game also taking place in Mississippi, but this one's in Oxford, 9 o'clock. Texas goes on the road to take on number 23 Ole Miss. Texas coming off a couple great wins and even a couple upset wins. Obviously, on the weekend, they upset Texas A&M very late in that one, and a big comeback win for the Longhorns. And Ole Miss, the Rebels, are okay right now. I mean, a couple of losses here and there that are really disappointing to them. That late loss that they had to Texas A&M on their home floor, looking to bounce back after a couple of weird games, but they take on Texas, and I think they should handle business on their home floor. They are in Oxford and a bit of a tough place to play, and Texas has not been strong on the road. They've been more of a home court advantage type of team, and that's where a lot of their big wins have come up. And I think Ole Miss should handle business, like I said, on their home floor here. So we'll see what happens. The final game I'll look at is a bit of a high spread here as Houston, the number 6 Houston Cougars, 7 o'clock tonight, take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. And Houston is 9.5-point favorites. The problem with that, in my mind, this one's in Morgantown. This is not an easy game. Although Houston is rolling right now, really strong team and really one of the contenders to win it all in the end in March, I do think that West Virginia and Morgantown offers a very tough place to play, and it's not going to be as easy as it looks for the Houston Cougars. I know they're on a roll right now, 8-0 in conference, and they've been red hot coming off the win on the road in Allen Fieldhouse on the weekend at Kansas. But, I mean, Morgantown's just a different animal here, and a lot of teams in the Big 12 really, really struggled there. Even though West Virginia's had a couple of injuries here and there, I really think they figure things out and really right the ship here and give Houston a real tough test tonight, 7 o'clock. So make sure you tune into all of those games as a great slate of college basketball, and we look towards March once again, but conference play really in full effect. So tune into all of those games later. But that'll do it for episode 46 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamud. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.